Yeah, I've been diagnosed with that actually. I was diagnosed with that at a very young age. I think I was like 8, 9, or 10, and the doctors prescribed me Adderall. Wow, welcome to another video. It's been a little while, hasn't it? So, I guess some of you guys are not new here, or are new here. Well, a bit of both, but I'm not going to take too long getting into this video, but this should be an interesting watch. 6 problems only smart people have. So, as a self-proclaimed smart person, I thought I'd watch this and kind of give my reaction to it. So, I've seen a little bit of this video, but I just decided I wanted to do a reaction to it and give you my thoughts on this, because I actually think that I would be able to provide some helpful insight for some of these things. For anyone that can relate to these struggles, I do think that I've gone through some of these things and have realized a lot of things just as a person who has grown and can relate to these struggles. Maybe have some advice or just perspective that would be helpful for struggles that are probably relatable, you know, if you consider yourself to be a smart person. So, I mean, I'm just saying this as like a video that's really not trying to, you know, be all egotistical about intelligence or whatever. Really not about that at all. But if you're the type of person that ever felt like you resented your intelligence because of the struggles that you know come with it or something, I really urge you to stick with this video, because I can relate to that and I have stuff to say about that. And I'm actually not sure if this video is going to get into that specifically, but I will. So, as I'm sipping my chamomile tea here, trying to wind down. This is funny, this cat kind of looks like it's sipping out of this cup, isn't it? I almost put milk in this tea, but I didn't, because then the cat would be drinking it. Man, I've cleaned up my diet so much recently, guys. I might talk about that another time, but feeling super healthy these days. All right, let's get into this. 6 problems only smart people have.
Hey Psych2Goers, and welcome back to your favorite spot for all things psychology. Thank you so much for your love and support, enabling us to make yet another exploration into everyday psychology. So, let's begin. Do you ever wonder if your problems can be concluded to the idea that you're just too smart for your own good? Even high IQ comes with its own set of highs and lows. Sigh. We usually think of the highly intelligent as people who are destined for success and given more opportunities than others. But what if there are some problems that are more likely to arise just because you are intelligent? According to psychologists and extensive research, there are some problems smart people are more likely to have. Before we begin, please do not use this to self-diagnose, as this is not a scale for rating intelligence. With that said,
It's kind of a funny comment. Don't use this to self-diagnose. It's like to self-diagnose what? That I'm smart or something? I don't think that's quite what they mean, but you could interpret it that way, which is just a funny way to, like, I don't know. It's just a funny thing to self-diagnose as your intelligence or something. It's just silly.
here are 6 problems only smart people have. Number 1, they often suffer from psychological disorders. Yes, you heard that right. Research suggests that your intelligence can also mean an increased risk of you developing certain affective disorders. Psychologist and researcher Ruth Harpinski conducted a study in which all her participants were members of American Mensa, a high IQ society, which requires all its members to have an IQ in the top 2%.
Wonder what the heck that is. I might look into that. That sounds like a really snobby club. But what the heck is that? I'll look into that sometime, just out of my own curiosity. I've never heard of that.
The participants self-reported whether or not they were diagnosed with or suspected they had a range of mood disorders and anxiety disorders. Disorders reported included attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD.
Yeah, I've been diagnosed with that actually. I was diagnosed with that at a very young age. I think I was like 8, 9, or 10, and the doctors prescribed me Adderall. It was a very small dose of Adderall, but I felt like ethically wrong about being prescribed that, you know? I guess I had the self-awareness enough as a small kid to realize to some degree that maybe something isn't necessarily wrong with me, but maybe I'm just different. And the fact that I'm just being diagnosed this pill at such a young age to change the way that I sort of operate socially in a classroom setting, it just felt wrong to me in some way. Like I didn't trust it. I didn't believe in it. And I'm thankful that my parents were never pressuring me to take it. I remember that day my mom actually took a small dose with me. And that was the dose that I think I was prescribed or something. But isn't that insane? Like you give an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, I don't think I was 10 years old yet. Adderall That just sounds insane to me. Like, just say that out loud. Prescribing an 8-year-old an Adderall. Like, I hate that that's even a thing. I mean, can't the prescription or whatever the diagnosis be that he's 8 years old? You know? Maybe 8-year-olds get bored in class. Like, classroom settings are inherently such an unnatural thing to really exist. You know what I mean? That's something that is just so far removed from the way that people would really learn in the real world before society had like a whole structured existence. You know? I really think it's messed up that there's a lot of things I might disagree with, and when it comes to school and stuff, but just the fact that like a kid is having a hard time paying attention because he's bored, you tell that kid that he has ADHD and then prescribe them Adderall. I think that's honestly sick. I think it's sick. I'm gonna keep watching this anyway. I was diagnosed with ADHD, as a lot of people are, and a lot of people that I know and I'm friends with are.
And psychological diseases that include environmental and food allergies, asthma, and autoimmune disease. According to the study, this implicates high IQ as being a potential risk factor for affective disorders, ADHD, and for an increased incidence of disease related to immune dysregulation. Number 2, they're night owls.
Yep, here I am at 11 something p.m., but I've been here like 3, 4, 5 in the morning recording videos because it was something I wanted to do with my nighttime. Nighttime is such a weird time to try to be productive. Like, a lot of your work ends up being on the computer, probably. And that's work in general, right? Like, work life just ends up being on the computer most often. But especially at night, like, you're just a lot more limited in terms of what you're probably able to do, just because all the businesses are closed. Probably most of your friends of the world is asleep. And it's dark outside. So it's just the options for things to do are much more limited. It's a weird being a night owl. And I'm not all the time. Sometimes I'm a morning person and that's great, but sometimes I'm a night person and it's great. But I do eventually start to get really sick of the night owl kind of lifestyle, and it just starts to feel unhealthy mentally and physically a little bit. And I try to switch it up from time to time. It's kind of nice having both, but to be stuck being a night owl is kind of just awful after a while.
Are you frequently burning the midnight oil? Are you more awake while the rest of the world sleeps? According to researchers Richard D. Roberts and Patrick C. Kylalin, evening types are more likely to have higher intelligence scores. While being a night owl
one reason I think the evening types are, it's not literally, I don't want to credit everything to just being they're night owls because they're smarter people. I think it's one of those things, which came first, the egg or the chicken, but I think to some degree, like the isolation that comes with being up at night and the sun is down, I think that's inherently just a time of day or night, I guess I should say, where you're sort of forced to be more introspective. Like maybe you're alone more, or things are more quiet. You just end up spending more time in your head. And I think that plays a large role,
may sound like a good thing, and it can be. There are some downsides to working through the night. Firstly, your schedule is likely messed up. You work long hours throughout the night without getting tired. But because of this, you stay up through the night, and then you also have to get up early for work. If you don't get the necessary sleep, you may feel tired and groggy when you have to work during the day, or when socializing with friends. If your sleep schedule is off, you likely won't be feeling as alert and well-rested as your friends at 7 a.m., which means that morning picnic you all had planned, well, you may just feel you need to cancel. You're too tired. Maybe
Man, I've never had a group of friends where we all planned a morning picnic. That'd be kind of nice. Never had those friends. Done morning hikes or something a couple times, but yeah, never a morning picnic with your friends. Jeez, who's got those kinds of friends? That sounds awesome.
Schedule for an evening of dancing instead. Number 3, they have high expectations. Did your test scores label you as smart early on in childhood?
Yes.
Or just raise others' expectations of you?
Yes.
Even you may have these paramount expectations from none other than yourself. People expect you to succeed and achieve nearly perfect scores on all your tests because you displayed characteristics that deemed you as smart. So, meeting these expectations may hang as a bit of a burden upon your shoulders, and those expectations ultimately cause you serious stress if you don't manage them effectively.
Yeah, expectations are a funny thing, and I think that's one of those things like that always chases you if you are on a successful path, Think about professional athletes, or like maybe the number one athlete or the most famous whatever. Like those people are put in a spotlight, they're put on a pedestal, and they're kind of just expected to consistently be that person, you know? And that kind of pressure is just part of the existence, I think, that really successful people have to learn to live with in their own way. And that's the thing, like when you're number one at something in a really big, significant way, I think your path is somewhat relatable to other people, like sort of in a vague way. But at the same time, like people that are at the very top are in a very unique place because like they are the best of their time and the best maybe to ever do what they're doing, you know? And I think that is just such a specific thing. Like they're literally the only person in the world that can really relate to what they're doing or what they have to deal with. And I'm sure that's really isolating. Obviously everybody's own life is their own life, and nobody lives the life that you quite do. But I think, especially if you're at the top in that kind of way, like there's nobody really to look up to in a lot of ways, you know? And that's got to be hard. Especially when maybe a lot of other people don't really sympathize with that. You know, you don't really get the support from people, or maybe they don't feel bad because it's like, oh, I wish I was, you know, or like, how can you complain when you have all of this or whatever? So that must really suck sometimes. But I'd like to think more often than not that people that are in a position like that probably have the mental capacity and the strength to actually be in their position, whether or not they get all the validation for the particular struggle that they go through. But yeah. People like that, they generally do have other people in a similar position in a different field or industry or sport maybe, or something that can kind of be a support system in some way too. So they're not totally alone, you know, most of the time. So that's good.
It's best to take it one step at a time with whatever you do. Look towards the future, but don't be discouraged if it's not everything you thought it would be. Odds are, a year or two from now, you won't be thinking about that A- on your geography exam. Number 4, they're
Yeah, I'll say that too. Taking things one step at a time is one of those things that's like almost egotistically, I would reject that when I was younger. I was like, no, I'm smart. I can handle a lot of things. I can process information much more quickly than most people. And you know, to some degree that's true, but it's like, where do you draw the line? You know, because at some point, like you just start to overwhelm yourself. Like you look, you know, as me, I have a bunch of projects and ambitions and stuff. And I do have a lot of expectations, like high expectations of myself. And so do some of the people around me. But when I was a little bit younger, I think I had a much more toxic relationship with that. And I'm still kind of like balancing things in a way that could probably be healthier. There's, you know, always a better way to do things, but I'm clearly in a better place now in terms of where my perspective is with my expectations and my ambitions and all that stuff. So like much better now. But back in the day, you almost like expect yourself to just take on all those things and to be able to handle it because you have the intelligence to do so. But it's so easy to burn out, and it's so easy to overwhelm yourself. And I think the more mature you get as a person, you start to realize the difference and the balance that is necessary, like between being spiritually intelligent and being emotionally intelligent. You know, those are kind of similar things, but also just being like intelligent. It's really just a matter of balance with your self-awareness and being able to put things into perspective. Because when you're really intelligent, maybe you have a big ego because you know you're smarter than a lot of people. And imagine just thinking that way for a lot of things, and you just sort of frame everything from that perspective. Like it can get unhealthy really quickly. And you forget to ground yourself, and you forget to give yourself space, and you forget to realize that you do have limits and accept that. But you also just neglect other qualities of your life and other qualities of your character that you need to develop. Like intelligence is not everything, you know? Like if you have a big ego and you're really intelligent, your intelligence can just get hijacked by your ego, you know? Or maybe you're really insecure, but you're also super smart, and suddenly your intelligence and your smartness are just like fuel for your insecurity. So you have all these really complex, deep, profound understandings about your insecurity that just make you feel more insecure, instead of like something that is more spiritually grounded and forgiving, you know, like where you can actually find some emotional space to love yourself, right? So that's the thing, is like intelligence is this power, but it's not everything. It's just this power, right? It's really like, what's the energy behind it? Who's the character behind this intelligence? And that's the kind of thing that I've grown to appreciate and understand more. And that's kind of the irony to being smart and being intelligent. Yeah. I might talk about that a little bit more because there's something I want to say, but I feel like this video might get to something where I'll talk about that later. But let's see. It has to do with happiness.
Excitable and can have high energy. Have you ever had an intelligent friend who always seemed to be extremely intense and excitable in whatever they did? Do they go long hours without sleep because they're always hyper-focused or excited regarding their work? In the 1960s, Polish psychiatrist and psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski introduced the concept that being highly gifted or intelligent is associated with psychological and physiological overexcitabilities, otherwise known as OEs. It's most often a sudden high energy towards a certain situation or topic. It displays itself in varying ways, such as a competitiveness, compulsive organizing, compulsive talking, impulsive behavior, and others.
Okay, this is interesting. I kind of want to talk about this one a little bit, but I wonder what they're going to say about it. Try to take a mental note right here of these three things. Well, yeah, this is a reaction video, so maybe I should just say it now, huh? Yeah, these sort of impulsive responses to certain ideas that I may or may not get, like this impulsive cleaning or something, or just sudden competitiveness. That was something that I learned to kind of appreciate, you know? Sometimes people observe the way that you respond to certain things with such like odd, weird amounts of enthusiasm, but I also realize like the fact that I can be so impulsive and committed at the same time to certain things is actually like a wonderful and beautiful thing. But I think the struggle is to try to sometimes channel that impulse into something that feels productive, because it's really easy to get caught up in ideas that seem to have nothing to do with what you want in life, or nothing to do with your long-term goals, or they in some regard just seem completely distracting, but they have a lot of power over what you want to do. But yeah, it's funny, something like cleaning and reorganizing. I have done some insane organizing jobs around the house from time to time. And sometimes it's like I just get this idea and this idea just lights up and I just believe in it so much. I love it and I believe in it. And I have this whole vision for like maybe something I'm going to do for my room or my studio. And it's like, I have to make that true. I have to realize that, and I can't sleep all of a sudden. Like I can't sleep. I can't relax. I'm thinking about this. I'm, redesigning the whole room in my head and trying to optimize every detail. And sometimes it's simple, like you're reorganizing some shelves and stuff, but that's easier said than done. Like reorganizing involves like cleaning and maybe tossing things out and then repurposing the storage space that you use and stuff. So it's really easy to like get stuck on an idea like that. And then, everything else just kind of falls by the wayside. You don't care about anything else you have going on. This is what really, stands out to you as a priority. And that can be completely derailing to your life, depending on your life. So that's another character trait that can be easy to resent about yourself. But it's one of those things that you have to learn to live with, not learn to like reject and suppress. It's something that I think I would personally advocate as something that you kind of have to embrace, because the positive side of that is like, look how passionate you are. Yes, you might be impulsive, but like, follow your heart, follow your dreams, follow your visions. And if you can really get comfortable doing that and you get really good at you master the art of being yourself in that way, I think you can really just have this momentum that a lot of people don't have. But it's this whole crazy energy that's really hard to master because it is impulsive and it's very powerful. But, is it going to align with your goals or whatnot? But then you have to like consider, like, do my goals align with who I am and how I operate, or are my goals some weird compromise between what society thinks that I should do versus what is actually true to myself? So there's a lot of self-discovery that is necessary, I think, for making decisions like this and just getting to know yourself and whatnot and grow as a person. Let me go back a couple seconds here.
Situation or topic. It displays itself in varying ways, such as a competitiveness, compulsive organizing, compulsive talking, impulsive behavior, and others. It's unfortunate that these OEs are treated as a problem by teachers or parents.
Okay, good. I'm glad that she said that. Because see, like you could say that whole, that last one that they talked about, like where you have this sort of compulsive conversation type thing. I literally just went on a tangent and you can tell like my eyes kind of lit up with a passion and I had a lot of things to say and I was all excited about it. So, I mean, that's a wonderful thing though, you know, like I heard something and I responded with like real genuine emotional passion, and that's the kind of power that I'm talking about. Like I just heard something and then bam, like my brain is just like, you know, has all these things to say and get out, and I'm all excited about it. And that's a wonderful thing, you know. That's one of those things, like it sucks that the world is structured sometimes in a way that doesn't really, you know, seem to reward that kind of thing. But yeah, again, like the world isn't built for everybody necessarily. You kind of have to find your own space, but that's just life, you know. Like humans back in the jungle, like we had to find our own. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. Like maybe now the battle is just a little bit more intellectual and not so physical or something, but in a way it's always been that way. That's just life. That's existence, you know. So I don't resent that about existing or about being human. It's just, you know, it's how it is. And I wouldn't trade it for, you know, living in the jungle and being a hunter gatherer. I would take what we have now, but, you know, don't lose touch with your spiritual side and all that stuff, yada, yada.
Intelligent students and children are often mislabeled or punished due to unawareness about OEs. As research from the University Kabang San, Malaysia suggests, gifted students who are frequently labeled as problematic because of their intense behavior should be given assistance in understanding and coping with their overexcitabilities.
Yeah, I remember that. So the reason that that my teacher at the time, and I was in second grade, kind of like implied that I should probably, you know, talk to somebody, maybe have a doctor diagnose me or something, is because I'd be sitting in class and I'd sort of like fidget my legs. I was just kind of a fidgety, restless person. But God, school is so boring. Like it's kind of messed up that we make little kids sit for hours, just get lectured about stuff that they don't care about. And, you know, I mean, I'm really appreciative of my education and stuff. Like I'm grateful that I went to school and stuff, but I'm not going to say that there weren't a lot of periods of it that were super boring or that I just dreaded, or so many days that I woke up and I didn't want to go to school, you know? You know, I really appreciate school, but there's like another side of me that also resents how much of the childhood it seems like school kind of strips away. And I remember recess kind of getting shorter and less frequent as you got older too, like going from like third to fourth to fifth, like some of the recess intervals just sort of disappeared. And I'm like, that sucks. They're just going to have less recess. But yeah, that is annoying about the school systems for sure. And that's probably going to get better over time. I hope it does. Because I know there's a lot of talk out there just on the social media and whatnot about things like mental health and whatnot. And some of those conversations are kind of annoying and, you know, they take things a little too far. But I think it's probably a spark for a fire that might move things in a more positive direction. So hopefully that's what's happening.
Number 5, they overanalyze things.
Yes, they overanalyze
Have you ever
things.
admired someone for their intelligence, but noticed they always tend to overanalyze things? Well, this urge to analyze likely has a strong link to their intelligence. This tendency to overanalyze may be connected to the hyperbrain hyperbody theory, proposed by Ruth Harpinski and her colleagues. The theory connects being overly analytical to Dabrowski's psychological and physiological overexcitabilities, or OEs.
I wonder where they draw the line of something like overexcitable or overanalytical. You know, in some ways, I feel like that's something that you have to diagnose personally. Like, is the amount of analysis I put into something detrimental to my happiness or my existence in some way? Because I know for sure, like, I would not be as good of a musician or like an audio engineer if I wasn't a really obsessive, analytical, detail-oriented person. Like, I will play a certain note or sound or a few seconds of a song and I will listen to the hell out of that. Like, I will basically like meditate and have this out-of-body experience type of awareness to just really absorb as much data as possible. And I might find something in there that is so interesting and fascinating to me that I just listen to it over and over and over again, you know? And to me, that's a valuable character trait that I have, because that tendency is something that gives me, you know, ability in something that I do as a profession and that I do as work. Like, that ability is part of why I'm able to hear things and do things that, you know, are of a service that other musicians who come into the studio and stuff really appreciate. Like, it's that obsessive detail that I, you know, attention to detail that I have that is so useful, you know? Like, what would I be without that? What would I be without that overly analytical tendency that I may or may not have? So, I mean, sometimes it goes into detail with things that are kind of useless or maybe keep me up at night when they shouldn't, but it's not always a bad thing, you know? Again, it's one of those things that you have to get better at.
These psychological OEs cause you stress, and physiological OEs appear as a response to that stress. So as a result, overanalyzing often occurs. Let's say you receive a negative remark from someone you care about. Someone who is smart and also exhibits overexcitabilities may overanalyze the comment, causing physiological OEs in the form of the body's stress response, which means more stress and anxiety. They could be creatively imagining all the scenarios and implied meanings from this one comment.
That's kind of what I meant about your insecurities hijacking your intelligence, right? And that's something about people. Like people, I think, just are wired to have a stronger response to negative things as opposed to positive things. Like whether it's a survivalistic threat, like danger, or something that maybe hurts your feelings emotionally or something, or maybe the food tasted bad. You're more likely to leave a review than if the food tasted good. Yeah, it's funny, right? I feel like we need to, as just a whatever society or whatever. I hate that word society. The word society has been ruined by the internet. But yeah, as a society, we need to like just consciously make more effort to kind of appreciate the positive things, you know? But yeah, that's a thing. Somebody says like, oh, your hair looks sort of bad sometimes, you know, that might fuck your whole week up. But yeah, I get what they're saying.
While another person may shrug their shoulders and move on. Number 6, they can become super stressed.
My whole point with that is that you can use your intelligence to view things more positively. That's really my point, is that I think a lot of the pros and cons of being smart, again, so it's like I said that people tend to weigh negative things more so than positive things. And so as an intelligent person, you might have all these developed ideas in your own head that are a response to something negative, which may have something to do with an insecurity that you might have, you know? So you might have this negative idea of yourself that is so deep and wide and dense at the same time, you know? And as a human who is probably, you know, subject to the tendency of weighing things more on the negative side than the positive side, as a smart person who has these insecurities, you might just have like a mountain of insecurities that just outweigh so much of the positive stuff. You might be one of those people who like, oh, there's this thing somebody said, but like on the positive here, but then there's always like a negative response to like invalidate whatever the positive thought is, to try to, you know, combat that negative idea. And this can be for so many things. So I hope that, you know, this sort of general concept I'm talking about is digestible or whatever, that you understand what I mean. But yeah, I think that's why maybe smarter people have that struggle, is because you just have more negative things. And so those things kind of scale out disproportionately, since humans have a tendency to outweigh negative things over the positive things. And as a smart person, you're just going to have more of both. But since you have more of both, you have more negative. And since we, you know, weigh things negative more so than we weigh things positive, it becomes this overwhelming thing. So my whole point is that it's really important to be positive. Being positive is so important. And for so many things, like egotistically, it's really easy to say like, oh, being positive is just stupid. And then I realized, wait, that's an insane way to think. I'm literally just assuming that being positive is stupid, you know? Being positive is a choice. It's a decision. Like, the reality was that I kind of caught myself like, wait, why am I always looking at the negative side of things? You know, there's always two sides of a thing. Like whatever happens, you know, there's always a positive and a negative way of looking at it. And you know that, right? Like on an intellectual level, you just know that that is true. You don't have to be smart to realize that that's true. So why can't you just accept that there's a positive way of looking at things and a negative way of looking at things? That's like for an egotistical reason, that's a really hard thing to accept. But if you can accept that, you can start to be okay with making the decision to look at things more positively. And the reason you might reject that is because of your intelligence, which has been hijacked by your ego over time. But humble yourself a little bit and try to realize that you deserve to be happy. You're not stupid for looking at things in a positive way, because there's always a positive and a negative way to look at things. It's just realistic, right? Looking at things in a positive way is fair, because if you're always looking at things in a negative way, you should balance that out by looking at it in a positive way. And then maybe you can kind of see both sides of something and then be like, okay, and have a more neutral response, hopefully, you know? So I think for that reason, it's so important to really get it into people's heads that being positivism is really important. And that's something that I think intelligent people who have a tendency to be negative have a hard time getting past. It's really just that rejecting the idea of looking at things in a positive way, because you have so many years of like things kind of working out the wrong way or whatever, or, you know, that's at least how you see things. But really realize that it's realistic to look at both sides. It's not stupid. It's not stupid. It's a decision.
Well, no surprise here. It was a long time coming, right? With all the extra analyzing going on, it ultimately had to lead to this. It has often been suggested that smart people are some of the biggest worriers. No, not warriors, but hey, with all the stress they've been through, they might as well be called warriors too. Harpinski's studies only add to this idea that those who have a high IQ and likely display overexcitabilities are often suffering from stress. With psychological OEs, people will often ruminate and feel stress about certain situations. Since physiological OEs appear from the body's response to this stress, when these two interact, it can cause both physiological and psychological dysfunctions.
I think it is important to realize this is something I got from a book. I forget which one it was. There's a book called A New Earth, or is it it's A New Earth, and that's the sequel to a book called The Power of Now. Very valuable book to read for just spiritual, emotional perspective. I highly recommend reading those books, like, to everybody. I recommend those two books. I really feel like A New Earth is like boom, you know, but the book The Power of Now kind of opens you up to being ready for the book A New Earth, and I highly recommend those two books for everybody out there. Yeah, but it does kind of make you or teach you to respect the relationship between psychological and physical, because in so many ways they overlap. I think one of the things that one of those books really highlights is that emotions are a physical response to thought. And that's true. That's true. Let that sink in for a second. Emotions are a physical response to thought. You see something scary, puts this idea in your head. You get scared. Maybe your heart rate goes up, or you see somebody really attractive and they give you an interesting look, and you get kind of like these goosebump butterfly feelings. Like, these are all emotional responses to thoughts. Or even just like you get this idea in your head, you're all alone, you get this idea in your head, and maybe it makes you really happy or sad, or you have a memory of something like that, and it, you know, affects you physically. So yeah, emotion is the physical response to a thought. So respect the relationship between the emotional and the physical, and maybe then you'll be more motivated to kind of prioritize balance of both in your life.
Stress, stress, stress. The truth of it all is, the more you think and ponder on an idea, the more you may think of negative scenarios or problems, and therefore stress about them.
Yeah, that's the thing. You think about an idea too long, and then eventually like a negative thing comes up, and then since we weigh that, you know, that negative thing kind of gets highlighted, and then you just sort of have it there. And it's always there because of the way that you weigh things, because you're human, and you know, it's just how it is. And then you just keep going. Like, maybe that negativity sparks this insecurity, which hijacks your intelligence again, so that you want to use it to like think of more negative things. It got you triggered. Now you're all worried. Oh God, what else do I have to worry about? And you just find more things. And this can cripple you when it comes to decisions about, you know, maybe changing careers, or committing to some classes in school or something, or maybe spending money on a certain thing, or cutting somebody out of your life, or like, it can be anything. It could literally be anything, any kind of thought for any kind of decision, big or small. You can totally do that, and just, you get lost in this rabbit hole where you keep trying to look for thoughts that are going to give you the confidence to move through with the decision. But what you find is that every time you keep fishing around for positive stuff, you find more negative stuff. And then you find maybe more positive stuff, but that negative stuff is still there, and it's not going away. So you can't, you know, you can't get over it. So you do kind of have to learn to just ignore those sometimes, or just not weigh them as much. They're always going to be there. But I think the more that you power through a lot of those decisions, regardless of those negative thoughts, you start to realize that they have a lot less importance than you might have thought. Because you do the thing, and then you get through the thing, and then you realize that that negative thought or negative idea or fear that you might have had didn't stop you from doing the thing, and maybe didn't really manifest itself as an outcome of the thing that you imagined. So you just start to realize as you go through life and take riskier decisions or take scarier decisions and decide to go through with them, that it's okay, and you're okay, and that you can handle this. And then maybe that gives you the confidence to see things in a more positive light. But yeah, you got to kind of rip that Band-Aid off and start doing scary things sometimes.
We hope we were able to give you insight in some of the ways you can identify the sneakiness of smartness. Do any of these resonate with you? Leave a comment down below and feel free to share any experiences and thoughts you have as well. If you found this video insightful, be sure to hit the like button and share it with those out there still boggled with the trials and tribulations of intelligence. Don't forget to subscribe to Psych2Go and hit the notification bell for new videos.
Okay.
As always, thanks for watching.
Yeah, so that was nice. And I really just thought that I should respond to some of this stuff, because to some degree, I do wish that they responded more, like maybe they elaborated on these things a little bit more, but that's something that I was able to do. And yeah, so that's my take on some of the things that the video talked about. I hope it was helpful for you guys. It was helpful for me to just talk about that stuff too. And yeah, this is one of those things that I wish somebody could have told me when I was a little younger. But man, when you're young and you're smart and your ego is through the roof and your negativity just kind of has a way of putting up a wall where nobody can really get through to you. Like, there's no words or no thoughts that will mean anything to you because nobody can relate to you, right? Like, they don't know what you're going through. This person doesn't get it. Maybe they're not smart enough, or they're just trying to say nice things. So you just kind of write everything off that people say. But I was lucky enough to have certain people in my life at the time that, for egotistical reasons, I kind of put them above me. So I let their information in. Like, I respected their information because I guess I did. And yeah, I had egotistical reasons for like believing what they said and kind of, letting myself be vulnerable to what they were talking about. But yeah, in some real way too, they were just really able to relate to me at the time. And I'm grateful for those conversations I had then. So if I can be that for you in any way, that's exactly why I'm making this video. So let me know what you think. I'm not even going to tell you to like and subscribe. I just hope you appreciated the content. Different from what I usually do, but again, this channel is just kind of whatever I want it to be. So yeah. See you in a future video, I guess, and let me know what you think of the comments. If you have ideas or conversations or things that you wanted to talk about or get off your chest in the comments, I will definitely try to respond to you and be of help if I can. So I'll see you there, and I'll see you in a future video if you decide to stick around for those. All right, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Drink more tea.